Good Monday morning. It's 5:30. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you so much for getting your day started with us. And good morning to Miller over
Good morning.
in the Weather Center with this week's weather. I'm curious what the future has in store because this weekend was amazing.
Yeah, we had a great weekend, of course, down in Colorado, Wyoming. Different story. Before we get into our forecast, let me just show you some preliminary reports of some snow coming in for Wyoming. This is through this morning as we know right now. Cheyenne, close to 31 inches of snow, just over 28 in Wheatland, Buford 33, and Casper 26.3 inches. I know that's a record. In Colorado, getting their fair share. I know on total Boulder, Colorado had just over 27 inches of snow through the weekend. That's what we know so far with the latest numbers coming in. For us though, like Victoria said, it was a gorgeous weekend, but we actually could see some of that action, that rain, snow coming into our area, and we'll tell you about that with the main forecast coming up. So we take a live look across Billings right now, courtesy of the Stockman Bank weather cam. 26 at the airport, feels like 18, dew points at 23, so it is somewhat humid out there. Winds out of the northwest at about 8 miles an hour. Yeah, there's that moisture coming in. You can see the cloud cover already starting to billow up around the area where we've got 32 at Cowley. My friends up at Huntley at 29. We've got 25 in Broadview, up in White Sulphur Springs at 28. And you'll notice that cloud covering increasing as we go along today. And may even see a little bit of rain here in Yellowstone County. As we go into this evening, it could transition to snow overnight through the morning. If you are areas east and south of Billings, maybe a better chance where we could see some accumulation, but that's definitely something we want to keep an eye on. We're going to go with a high today of 51 here in Billings. How are we going to get there? Well, we're in the 20s this morning. We'll get into the 30s by 10 o'clock, 40s by lunchtime, and then to the 40s and 50s by later this afternoon, with that cloud cover and a chance we could see some rain. And again, tomorrow going to be a bit of an oogie day, but we start to rebound as high pressure takes over. And by the time we get to Friday, Victoria, maybe looking at, I'm not saying it's going to happen, a chance at 70.
Wow.
How about that?
Amazing.
All right.
Chance for yard work. I like it.
Oh,
yeah.
goody.
That's where we're going. All right. I'll get to news. Thank you so much, Bill.
Okay.
Our top story this morning takes us to Lodge Grass, where an officer with the Bureau of Indian Affairs is injured in a shooting with a suspect who ended up getting away. The FBI is now investigating Sunday's incident. The suspect is an adult. He has not been found and his condition is unknown. The officer's injuries were described as minor. We'll get you more information as it becomes available. Now to the latest on the pandemic. After a year of lockdowns and stay-at-home orders, the U.S. may be turning the corner on COVID-19. CBS's Naomi Ruckham has more.
More than 2 million COVID-19 vaccine doses are being administered every day in the U.S., 107 million and counting so far. Over 37 million Americans are now considered fully vaccinated. That's 11% of the total population. As high school football resumed in California this past weekend,
it's the greatest feeling ever. I get to be back on the field. It's my last year.
A new CBS News poll shows a majority of Americans are feeling optimistic about efforts to stop the pandemic.
I'd like to see the island like this. It'll bring it back to life and businesses will go back to normal.
Spring break is now underway in Texas, a state that no longer requires masks to be worn.
It's actually great to see the world functioning in some normalcy. I miss seeing people out enjoying themselves.
Experts are still urging caution.
The younger people particularly stop wearing masks, and then all of a sudden you have a surge that went right back up.
Overseas, 4 European countries have suspended use of the AstraZeneca vaccine. They're investigating reports that some recipients experienced serious blood clotting after their shots. The vaccine is not authorized in the U.S. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
To date, the coronavirus has claimed over 2.6 million lives around the world and 534,000 in the United States. This week, President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris will hit the road to educate the public about the new relief plan. They will be joined by their spouses and other cabinet members for what the administration is calling the Help is Here tour. The administration says the tour is not to get more support for the legislation, but to explain all of the help it provides. The tour begins as the first wave of stimulus checks started arriving in bank accounts over the weekend. Now we go to Wyoming, where in some parts of the state, school is canceled this morning and roads remain closed after being pummeled with a weekend snowstorm. Terrible conditions stretch from the Buffalo area down to Cheyenne. Near Casper, officials called off snow plows last night after reports operators were driving off the road because the edges weren't visible. There is a link to check road conditions in Wyoming in this story on KTVQ.com. A criminal investigation looking into efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia intensifies this week. A grand jury will convene to gather and review evidence and to determine if President Trump had a role in it. The Fulton County District Attorney will review Trump's 62-minute call with Georgia's Secretary of State and will have a subpoena power to call witnesses. Legal experts say there is no doubt of the call or what was said, but the difficulty will be proving intent when it comes to considering criminal charges. It's possible a current member of Congress could be kicked out in the coming days. It's not for inappropriate behavior or for breaking any rules, but for not actually winning their election. Reporter Joe St. George brings us a closer look at what's going on and whether Congress swore in the wrong person.
Congress has been busy this year.
The bill as amended is passed.
They just passed a stimulus package, they endured an insurrection, and voted on impeachment. But is there someone actively voting as a member of Congress who shouldn't be there? Well, the answer depends on who you ask. The controversy is all about the 2nd Congressional District in Iowa, represented by Republican Congresswoman Marinette Miller Meeks. She defeated in November, according to Iowa state officials, Democrat Rita Hart, by, get this, just 6 votes, one of the closest elections in American history. But Hart is saying she actually won the election and that 22 ballots were not counted that should have been.
Each House of Congress shall be the judge of its own elections.
As a result, the House Committee on Administration has started investigating whether they swore in the wrong member of Congress. Republicans are furious.
We're having a meeting to move forward with overturning an election of one of our colleagues.
But so far, the committee hasn't dismissed calls to drop the challenge, and investigation continues.
These allegations warrant further investigation by the committee.
As far as how this impacts you, well, changing one seat would not impact the balance of power in Congress, but it could set a precedent for Congress being more involved in who gets sworn in close races. Speaker Pelosi said last week there is a scenario where the current congressman gets kicked out.
There could be a scenario to that extent.
On Capitol Hill, I'm Joe St. George.
And now in other news, FEMA is now helping to deal with a surge in migrant children coming across the border. For the next 90 days, the Federal Emergency Management Agency will help find shelter for all of the minors crossing the southern border. The Border Patrol reports nearly 9,500 unaccompanied minors entered the U.S. last month, the highest number in nearly 2 years. The Department of Homeland Security says the rise in crossings could be the result of violence, poverty, and new immigration policies under President Biden. And before we take a break, women made history at the 63rd Grammy Awards. CBS's Chris Martinez has more.
Breaking the all-time record for the most Grammy wins ever by any female artist or any singer, male or female, the Grammy goes to Beyoncé!
Beyoncé reigned supreme at the 63rd Grammy Awards, adding 4 more statues to her collection, bringing her total to 28. Among the wins, Best R&B Performance for her album, Black Parade.
I believe it's my job and all of our jobs to reflect the times, and it's been such a difficult time.
Taylor Swift became the first woman to win Album of the Year 3 times for Folklore.
We just want to thank the fans.
19-year-old Billie Eilish won Record of the Year for the 2nd year in a row for All I Ever Wanted, but said Megan Thee Stallion should have won.
You deserve this. You had a year that I think is untoppable.
What's up, Grammys?
Megan Thee Stallion won 3 Grammys of her own, including Best New Artist and Best Rap Song for Savage, featuring Beyoncé.
Music really helped a lot of us get through the pandemic.
And as you can see here, we are outside.
Host Trevor Noah called it a night to celebrate the music that's touched our lives and saved our souls over an unprecedented year. And it was an unprecedented show.
This is not a Zoom background, all right? This is real.
The awards were handed out amid social distancing and mask-wearing protocols, and for most of the artists, the Grammys marked their first public performance in a year.
Artists performed without an audience, except for their fellow artists on 4 stages inside the Los Angeles Convention Center. And for the first time, employees from hard-hit smaller music venues across the nation presented awards. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
This year marked the first time in Grammy history 4 different women won the top 4 awards.